we've had two parties in power in South Africa, essentially, the National Party and the ANC. That's been how this country has been operating.
And it's two sides of, you say, the same coin.
Yeah, it's two sides of the same coin. It's a movement. Nationalists are movements of grievance.
Yes.
Their grievance against the British. The Afrikaners had the big grievance against the British for destroying the Boer republics and taking over the control of the mineral resources. Mm-hmm. The African elite had their grievance against the British for settling without them in 1909.
Yes.
But the British left all this behind and said, "You guys sort out the mess between the two of you."
Okay, and in terms of what and
your read of last year's election results, what's happening?
Well, in last year's the middle class took power, as I say. The African middle class took power in 1994. And to me, their biggest mistake was to focus on developing the middle class instead of developing the black masses, African, colored, Indian, poor, and working class. They decided to focus on developing the welfare of the African middle class through two policies: black economic empowerment and affirmative action in the state. Black economic empowerment in the private sector and affirmative action in the public sector. So initially they sold this strategy as being a strategy for advancement of all the black people. But the colors and the Indians soon realized that, no, we are left out of this.
Yeah.
So that's why they joined the DA.
Yes.
And because they had been with the Africans since the 50s, fighting together. You know, the Defiance campaign in 1952 was led by an Indian called Yusuf Kachalia and an African called Nelson Mandela, working together.
Yeah.
So the ANC and the Transvaal and the Natal Indian Congress were partners from the early 50s, right up until black economic empowerment was implemented, when then the Indians were left out and the colors were left out and the whites who supported the ANC were left out. So they advanced the African middle class.
Yeah.
And that the culmination of this was going to be, so they alienated first the colored population, the Indian population, the white population, and now they've alienated the mass of the African population. Yeah. So that's why they lost power. And that's why they can never get power back.
Yeah, that one kind of once that so you're saying that once the decision has been taken to leave the movement, it's almost impossible to bring people back in.
Very difficult.
And do you think something like, maybe President Ramaphosa living up to what we think might be his completely fabricated reputation of this great reformer, if he actually does live up to this reputation and begins to implement a series of reforms that unlocks the potential for the poor black masses to enter into the workforce, to start to get a foot onto the economic ladder, is that something that might save the ANC, go so far as to save the ANC, or is the idea just kind of dead now?
No, that won't happen. It can't happen, because for it to happen, you have to lower the consumption level of the African middle class.
Yeah.
The South African state, as you have observed yourself, is hugely bloated with the African middle class. So if you're going to now focus resources into, for example, repairing the aircraft, but that's investment, which means you have to cut off the consumption of the African middle class, and they will never agree to it.
Yes.
So That's where we're sitting as a country. You know, the IMF did a study a few years ago of remuneration of the public sector in South Africa. It's probably the highest in the world as a percentage of gross domestic product.
Jeepers. Yeah.
So, and that is blocking investment. It's a huge obstacle to investment. It's nearly 17% of GDP goes to the salaries of the public service.
17%.
17%. Similar countries, middle income countries like Thailand, like Chile in South America, is 6 or 7%. So our public service is a massive drain on the economy of the country. But the holders of political power, which are the African middle class, despite their alliance with the DA, and I'm not quite sure what the DA calls itself. Anyway, the African middle class policies are the policies in place. So if we want to uplift the rest of the population, you have a zero-sum game between the consumption of the African middle class and the upliftment of the economy of the country.
Yes.
And because the middle class control the political power, they will carry on suppressing the growth of the economy.
Okay, so it's because one of the theories that we kind of operate on in the common sense or what we believe about the ANC is that it's locked itself into a position in which it's unable to reform because of the kind of leadership structure that it has, a 100 plus person essentially board that has to come to a consensus in order to turn the ship. But you are adding another layer, which is that the people that ensure that the ANC holds on to power, their base, are determined in the ANC maintaining course, because that ensures that they get to continue to enjoy the life that they do.
Yeah.
Okay. And so,
absolutely.
So the problem it is not just a top-down problem.
No, it's not leadership. It's a structural issue, which is political power in the hands of a middle class that owns no assets and then uses the state for its consumption.
Yeah.
If you compare the state of South Africa under the ANC and the state of South Africa under the National Party, you can see the difference. The National Party were landowners primarily. Okay, they had some other businesses, but their core base were farmers. So they used their power control of the state to develop agriculture. And they made their money out of being farmers.
Yes.
You know, the Afrikaner political elite were also farmers. So they, in order for their farms to be profitable, they had to invest in infrastructure. They had to invest in railways. They had to invest in silos. They had to invest in controlling cheap labor because they decided to use cheap labor. So they had this massive state machinery to control the cheap labor and suppress the consumption of the African population. So they invested in that, but they funded their consumption through their assets, which were farms, and then businesses as the economy diversified, especially after the Second World War. It's very different with the African elite. They don't have those farms, so they have no incentive to invest.
Yes,
to invest in infrastructure, to invest in all the things you need to invest in if you are going to grow an economy. So that if you look, for example, at our human capital index, global, the World Bank produces, South Africa is like number 132 out of 169 countries in the human cap, because there's no investment in education, in the skills of the masses. But the ruling elite doesn't need skilled labor.
No.
It taxes the production sector, and where the production kept. sector gets its labor from, that's its own lookout.
Mm. And on that point of the ANC and its incentive structures and kind of why that produces lack of investment, do you think that there's also a case here in which there's been a kind of too close relationship between big business in South Africa and the ANC, and they've managed to get most of their incentives to align quite nicely with each other, because the ANC, with some of its more kind of leftist ideological roots, doesn't necessarily enjoy a free market, and that helps big corporates because they don't necessarily enjoy competition and free and open and people being able to challenge their dominance.
Shake and win millions of prizes.
And so is this a case in which the kind of elites in business and the elites in politics have joined together in order to entrench a system that benefits them both?
Yes, absolutely. You know, black economic empowerment was never ANC policy.
Mm.
The ANC, during the struggle against apartheid, was a multiracial organization.
Yeah.
So it couldn't come up with a policy that favored one race or another, because it was a multiracial organization. Black economic empowerment was handed over as a policy largely from Sanlam, which was from the National Party.
Yes.
Because they saw that as a way of creating this alliance that you are talking about.
Yes.
They bought off the leadership of the ANC with giving them shares in what actually were marginal companies in the scheme of things of Africana capital.
Yes.
I mean, Metropolitan Life, which is what Sanlam used to create New Africa Investment Limited, the heart of black economic empowerment, was a marginal company in the scheme of Sanlam.
Yes, yes.
It was a life. First, it was listed on its own, and secondly, 85% of its life policyholders were African and colored. So it was a marginal company.
Yes, yes.
And they used that marginal company to bring in leaders of the ANC, of the PAC, literally to buy them off.
Yeah.
And then that became the modus operandi of big business, was that we, big business, we want to buy off these new rulers so that they suppress competition, and so on and so forth, and leave us to operate the way we have been operating all along.
Yeah.
So black economic empowerment, many people think it was created by the ANC. Then the ANC, I was in the research department of the ANC in exile. We never had any policy of black economic empowerment. This was handed over to the ANC by Sanlam.
Okay. And so, and just an interesting point, given that I know polling quite well, we asked a question in June of this year, who do you feel benefits most from affirmative action? And can you guess, so we gave 5 options. We said the poor, the middle class, elites, the politically connected, and business owners. And on that question, I think it was 82% of people picked either one of 3, which was, I think 50% picked politically connected, another 12% picked, another 20% picked the elites, and then another 12% picked business owners. And so what's very interesting just on that point is that the understanding that there's this kind of unholy alliance based around affirmative action has actually crept its way into the public opinion of ordinary South Africans, which I think is also kind of goes to show that what might be have pushed people to the point of giving up entirely on the ANC. That, you know, one of these ideas that the ANC today fights tooth and nail for is seen as what it really is, a kind of elite enrichment scheme by the people who are meant to keep the ANC in power.
It is an elite enrichment scheme, the black economic. That's why the numbers that you are giving, all they are telling you is that the politically connected who are the people in government, who are the heads of the ANC, the heads of parastatals, the big business, where your Sanlams of this world, they benefit, all of them. There's a third category. They are all enmeshed together.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think let's stick on the point of the ANC, because I think we've laid out quite well how the ANC's got here, that you've got this idea that we're at the end stage of nationalism in the country, and that idea as kind of the monolithic idea is dying out, and so therefore that means we must be in a political transition, kind of definitionally, right? So what do you think? Where do you think this political transition goes, and where do you think it leaves something like the ANC, or just maybe the traditional political players in South Africa, in democratic South Africa?
Sure, that's what's called $1 million question. So, for me, the ANC is on its way out. Your surveys, and you guys do lots of surveys, essentially they are giving the same message. That the ANC is on its way out. The second most important party is the DA. So the question is, what is the future of the DA?
Yes.
So let's forget the ANC. The ANC is the past, and it's petering out. They are fighting amongst themselves, and it's fragmenting. If you look at all the new parties that are there, most of them are set up by people from the ANC.
Yes.
MK Party, EFF, Rise Mzansi, what have you. Yes. There are so many of them, but they have ANC roots. So the ANC is dying and it's splintering.
Yes.
So the question is, what is the future of the DA? So that is really the big question in South Africa when we're talking about the DA.
Yeah.
Now, I have no crystal ball. Maybe John Steenhuisen has, or Helen, with the two of them, but I haven't got one. But the key question in South Africa today is, what is the future of the DA?
And on that point, I was watching you speak, I can't remember on which platform, but a point that you made, which I thought I've been thinking about since I heard that point, was that you said that the capitalist class in South Africa doesn't really have a voice, and that it's an unfortunate thing that it seems as though the DA comes from a similar route of being a primarily middle class party, and one's great fear is, if everything that we've laid out here is true, is that if the DA is in fact a middle class party, that the incentives when it's in governance are not that different from the ANC in governance. And it means that we might just have a kind of, switch over what looks like a political change, but really is a movement, a very small movement. But then on the other hand, I'm sure if we were to have John sitting here with us, he would be at pains to tell us about how the DA comes from the kind of classic liberal tradition in South Africa, and how, we had the Helen Suzman and the Progressive Party, and then the Federalist Party, and then the PFP, and we have this whole long lineage, and that the ANC doesn't have that similar kind of rooting, and in fact, the classically liberal aspects of the DA, which are the parts that one hopes get the most attention, will win out. So do you think that the DA is capable of, and I to tie this back into the point, your point about the capitalist class in South Africa, do you think that there is enough incentive for the DA to actually live up to and fulfill and to be a kind of proto-capitalist party, or?
Well, you see, the challenge of the DA, and as you rightly point out, it sees itself as a liberal party. That's its historic root.
Yes.
But liberalism in South Africa is an English-speaking white ideology. It's not an Afrikaans ideology. It's not an African ideology. It's not a colored ideology. Now that is the majority of the population of South Africa.
Yes.
So an English liberal ideology is not mainstream ideology in South Africa. It's a marginal.
Yes.
So first, the DA has to learn that liberalism in South Africa is not core. It's a marginal ideology, which means if they want a big vote of South Africans, they have to move away from liberalism. That's point number one. Point number two, liberalism, the West is moving away from liberalism. Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is no liberal.
Yes.
He's moved away from liberalism. So the DA's role models like the United States, like the United Kingdom, they are moving away from those ideas. Even Germany, I mean, the biggest party in Germany, or if not the second biggest party, is Alternative for Germany.
Yeah.
And that's not a liberal party.
Not at all.
So this is the challenge the DA faces, is that it has a marginal ideology in the philosophies or political mindsets of the people of South Africa across race. And why is it only the English-speaking white South Africa? Because they've never been colonized.
Yes.
They are the only people in this country who were not colonized. They were helping the colonizer. So they have the colonizers' ideology, which was liberalism, but it only applied in England. It didn't apply in the colonies. And they inherited the liberalism of the British colonialists from England. But nobody in South Africa is a liberal.
Yeah.
The Afrikaners are not liberal. The Colors are not liberal. The Indians are not liberal. The Africans are not liberal. So now, if the DA is now the second largest party in the country, there are lots of changes if it wants to become a majority party, which it has to make. One of which is it has to shed liberalism. And I don't know if they are willing to, or they understand that. First, do they understand that liberalism is a marginal ideology in the body politic of South Africa? That's what they have to learn.
Okay, so you said that the DA has to make a number of changes, and you outlined that number one is to kind of recognizing that liberalism is a marginal ideology, and then second, moving away from it. But what do you think should the DA move towards to be successful in South Africa, but successful politically, so to get voters to come on side, but then also to be successful as a government in South Africa, right? Because one might claim that it would be very good for, say, the DA to move towards a more nationalistic character, because the body politic in South Africa understands nationalism.
Yeah, but they've rejected it. So yes, going there won't help them.
Okay. So
the body politic of South Africa has had 150 years of nationalism in one form or another. So going there won't help them. That's why EFF, and MK parties, which are still embracing a strong version of African nationalism, they're small parties.
Yeah. And so where should the DA then go?
Well, I have no idea.
Okay.
Well, I've made the point that liberalism is not an asset to the DA. They have to jettison. Now, what do they replace that liberalism with? It has to be some form of developmentalism, because we have 40% unemployment.
Yeah.
Now, that's a big part of the voting population of South Africa.
Yeah.
So if you want their vote, you have to have a developmental philosophy and policies that incorporate them into the economy.
Yeah.
Instead of them marginalized where they are. So the DA has that's one of the things it has to do. It has to have some kind of a developmental, both ideology and practice.
Yeah.
Now, one of the core elements of developmentalism in South Africa is suppressing the consumption of the middle class, especially of the African middle class.
Yeah.
That's how Asia developed, by the way. Asia, Southeast Asia and East Asia developed by suppressing the consumption of the elite and growing investment. That's how and that's what has to happen in South Africa. Now, is the DA going to be able to suppress this huge consumption of the African middle class who occupy the state? Well, they have to.
Yeah.
If they want to be the ruler of South Africa or the dominant party, they have to. Now, how they do it, well, that's why they are the leaders of the DA and I'm not. They have to find a solution.
And to stick on the DA, and maybe to just as a point of interest, given that we're sitting in the city itself, we have Helen Zille running for Johannesburg. And what do you think that she is capable of winning the city? And do you think that does anything to the DA's electoral prospects if she does win it?
Yes, I think she has a good, chance of winning.
Mm-hmm.
The ANC voters, let's say in the township, in the original, they are disillusioned with the ANC.
Yeah.
And for very good reasons. So, and then the middle class of all races in the suburbs are also disillusioned, except for the civil servants who are part of the state now. But that's a minority. The big part of the middle class and the elite in Gauteng are in the private sector, not in the state sector. So that just on those two equations, it gives Helen Zille a good chance, I think.
And if she wins, do you think that there's a potential that she can catalyze that into ensuring that the DA might, without let's say moving towards a broader church ideology, just getting to kind of witness successful governance, assuming that that's what she achieves, maybe that helps to propel the DA to the top of South Africa's political ladder without some of the things that you suggest?
Well, if she wins, if she is to be able to make any difference, she has to transfer the budget of Johannesburg from salaries of the upper class or the upper elite within the employment of Johannesburg to investment in infrastructure and all those issues, which means she has to start to implement the cutting of the African middle class salaries, who are the majority of the public service in the municipality of Johannesburg. Now, that is a challenge. I hope she understands that will be her first challenge, is to cut the salaries of this group and transfer those resources not to consumption by the poor, but to improving the environment for investment, which will then provide jobs for the poor.
You'll be happy to know that in my interview with her and my conversation, when we were talking about Johannesburg and Cape Town, she made 2 points which I think you would appreciate. One was that she said, if you take the capital budget in Cape Town as a quantum, there's more. Cape Town invests more in their capital budget than the capital budgets of all metros in the rest of the country combined.
Okay.
So that's the one point on the investment. And then the other point that she makes is that she says, well, when you look at Johannesburg's budget, as Joburg as a metro spends the lowest amount on maintenance as a proportion of the budget. And so her two big things are, increase the capital budget and increase the maintenance budgets. And she says, and one of the things that she points out that she would hope to get rid of is the duplications of jobs across the city and then the municipal levels, where you've got a lot of jobs being done by two people because it's a means of ensuring employment.
Yes, so those are all the things that have to be happened. But the net effect has to be reducing the resources that go into middle class consumption and increasing resources into capital expenditure and all those.
Yeah, so it's essentially a kind of micro example of the macro South African issue.
Yes, that is ironically, that would be an indication of what the DA would do if it then controlled the government.
Yeah.